Welcome you all today's discussion, and I'm glad to have you here. So today's topic is the Renaissance, Montaigne, Pascal, Bacon, and Hobbes. So these are the four different philosophers from this Renaissance period. So we will try to talk about them all, but if time doesn't allow, then in that case, we will keep our discussion limited within Montaigne and Pascal. And if time permits, then we'll go for Bacon and Hobbes. And we'll try to have another lecture besides this one, if we cannot complete the whole discussion about all these four people. Actually, it is not possible because these are the very prominent philosophers and we need to talk about them in detail. So at least first two, Montaigne and Pascal, we'll try to cover today. So as you can see on the screen, the very first philosopher that we are going to talk about today is Michel de Montaigne. He is a French writer and a philosopher. He is a very famous writer, especially for his essays. He is very famous. And also as a philosopher in the Renaissance period, he has some influence on people, and also the philosophers who came later. So you can see on the screen, he was born on February 28, 1533, and the name of the place is Château de Montaigne, near Bordeaux, France. So he was born in France and he died in 23rd September 1592. And he died in the same place, Château de Montaigne, actually where he was born. He first actually started this very idea of essay. So some people, they also call him that he is the father of the modern essay, because the essay as a genre, it came into reality. With the work of Michel de Montaigne. So he started this literary genre essay, and we can see that later on different other essays, just like Francis Bacon and other essays from different era and different parts of the world. Actually, they were influenced by Michel de Montaigne and his style of writing. And in his essays, he wrote one of the most captivating and intimate self-portraits. So you see, in his writing, he tried to write himself. He tried to talk himself. So you can say most of his writings, they're autobiographical, but at the same time, they're philosophical, and you can also relate to your life also. So that was his idea, that through presenting his life,
Sure.
he also tried to reflect people's life in his writing and people's ideas. So you can say, in that sense, his essays are a kind of social critique. His essays are a kind of social critique, we can also say that. And could you please turn off your microphone? If it is not needed. I think Risalat or someone else actually. If it is not needed, please turn off your microphone. Okay. Now, Michel de Montaigne, actually he expressed, in his celebrated essays, he expressed for the Renaissance a captivating version of classical skepticism. So usually we can say that as a philosopher, he was a skeptic, or he followed the classical skepticism. I'll explain that what is classical skepticism, or skepticism, as a term. What does it mean? Do you have any idea about a skepticism? As a philosophical norm? Can anyone tell me what is your understanding of skepticism? What do you understand by this term? Can anyone try? What do you mean by skepticism?
স্যার প্রত্যেকটা থেকে পালাতে চেষ্টা করে, মানে সিচুয়েশন থেকে সে সিচুয়েশনটাকে ওভারকাম না করে স্কেপ করে।
Okay, you're talking about actually escapism and skepticism. 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 Yes, you're very close. That means always you are doubtful about, different approaches, different things. So we call it skepticism. Or I can explain it in this way. It's a kind of attitude of doubt or a disposition to incredulity, either in general or toward a particular object. That means you are doubtful about something, about a particular object. Or you can say it's a kind of doctrine that true knowledge or some particular knowledge is uncertain. So we'll also see that Michel de Montaigne, he also believed that knowledge is uncertain. You cannot have any specific knowledge. Knowledge is not something which is static. So that's why, you cannot have true knowledge. All the time it is evolving. So that is called that means particular knowledge, or a specific knowledge is uncertain. Knowledge is possible, but if you really want to have specific knowledge about something, that is uncertain. And also it is a kind of, skepticism is a kind of method of, suspended judgment, we call it. Or you can say it's a kind of systematic doubt or criticism. Okay, so it's a kind of systematic doubt or criticism about particular object, about something. So that is the, you can say there is skepticism, briefly, if you really want to understand. So we can see that especially in philosophy, in skeptic philosophy, or philosophical skepticism, there actually we can see we emphasize on critical scrutiny, and also we offer the intellectual rigor. So there is critical scrutiny in that. So you will scrutinize something very critically. It's not that only you are doubtful, that's why you don't believe it. It's not like that. The skeptic also, when they don't believe in something, when they are doubtful about something.
Doubt any belief. Doubt any belief. This is called skepticism. Any belief or any character.
Okay. For your general understanding, you can say that you're doubtful about any belief. But doubtful about any belief doesn't mean that you will cause a kind of anarchy in the society or a chaos.
Yes, sir.
That means you don't want to create any chaos. That is the idea of Montaigne. That means you are doubtful, you're skeptical about something. That means you are inquiring into that particular thing. You are doing some kind of scientific investigation in that thing. So you will investigate, you will scrutinize, okay? You will look into that matter. What is it about? Okay? But it doesn't mean that you are doubtful, that's why you don't believe it. It's not totally like that. When you are doubtful, you try to investigate that thing. That why is it like this? Why is it not that way? So that is skepticism. So when you are a skeptic, in that sense, all the time you are trying to have a new thing. You're trying to create something new. You're trying to have a new idea or new method of understanding something. Now, Montaigne, he had discovered that in the ancient writings of the skeptics, we know that in Greece, there were skeptics, especially Zeno. He actually started this, not Zeno, actually Philo, sorry. That is Philo, or the spelling is Pyrrho. So Philo, actually, he started these skepticism, establishes there. And Phyllo's belief, we call it Phyllonism. And from there, actually, our Michel de Montaigne is very much influenced by this Phyllo's thought, his philosophy. So he took his, prescription, his skeptics, he took them and their ideas as a prescription for an emancipated mode of daily life. That means, in your daily life, if you really want to be emancipated, if you really want to get the freedom, the intellectual freedom, then you must be a skeptic. And he followed the idea of Pyrrho or Pyrrhonism, that we say. The skeptics of antiquity, such as Pyrrho, skepticism's founder, and about him, we could come to know about Pyrrho's and his works from Sextus Empiricus. he is a writer, and from his writing, actually, we would come to know about this skepticism, which was propagated by Pyrrho and his followers. So, about their skepticism, it means that something quite different from what that word means in modern usage. So, in the modern usage, the way actually we mean the skepticism, they didn't mean it in that way. So, for example, the word skepticism has, over the centuries, come to mean chiefly the mood of doubt, a doubt that anything can ever be known with certainty. The way actually we became doubtful about everything. That is the way actually we understand. The way actually, just a few minutes back, you have explained it, that is to become doubtful about any belief or anything. Generally, we understand it in this way. But the corollary, or in the intellectual world, you can see the corollary of such doubt is, you can say, indifference to the drift of events, and in extreme cases, and indifference to the physical conditions of life, not unlike the Stoic sense of resignation. But these were not the chief characteristics of classical skepticism on Montaigne's thought. Montaigne actually, he didn't believe the way actually the general sense of the skepticism we have. So his idea of skepticism was a bit different. For example, as you can see, Pyrrho had formulated no strict doctrine about what people could or could not know, or what did or did not exist. So he didn't say anything specifically about this, or he didn't give us any specific method of, understanding or to be doubtful about things. But central to classical skepticism was the mood of inquiry, and it was coupled with a desire to live a thoroughly exemplary human life. So you see, the classical skepticism is different from the Greek skepticism, or the Hellenistic view of the skepticism. You see, in the classical skepticism, or in the Renaissance time, what we find in Montaigne, in this philosopher, this kind of philosophers, we say that it's a mood of inquiry, which is, you can say, coupled with a desire to live a thoroughly exemplary human life. That means you will become a skeptic, and you will inquire into the life, and thus you will try to live a life which is exemplary. Exemplary means other people will find that your life is beautiful, your life is, they will take you as an idol. They can feel you. That's why it's an exemplary human life. That means there will be some kind of excellence in your life, and you can have that excellence in your life by questioning the existing doubts, and thus you will discover, or you will invent new methods, and on the basis of that new idea or new methods, you will lead your life. So that was the idea of skepticism at that time. It's not complete, it's not the complete disbelief, okay, but creating something new. So skepticism actually helped them to create something new. So this also was Montaigne's, you can say, that his chief concern about, having this kind of mood of inquiry into the life. So he was particularly attracted to a way of life that permitted him constantly to discover new insights, and at the same time enjoy all the powers he possessed as a human being. So you can understand that through investigating, or to have an inquiry into the life, he will discover the new thing, and you will develop a kind of new insights into the life, and thus what he will do at the same time, he will enjoy all the powers that he possesses. So as a human being, what you can do, you can have an inquisitive mind, you can be very curious about your life, and you can ask questions, you can be doubtful, you can be a skeptic, and at the same time, while actually you are being a skeptic, you have to develop a new kind of idea, a new kind of insights into the mind, and then at the same time, you have to enjoy the power. You have to enjoy. Here, power means not the wealth and other things. That means power as a human being. Power as a human being to sustain. Power as a human being to live in the life. So you'll also have to enjoy those powers. So you see, the usual way, the way actually we believe in the idea of the skepticism, it's not like that. Here actually it's more scientific, and at the same time that is very constructive. It's not destructive, that you will create a chaos in the society, being doubtful about everything. It's not like that. Now, about his, Dao actually looked upon himself, about his own life, about his own philosophy. He says that, quote unquote, says, an unpremeditated philosopher. So about himself, he's saying that I'm an unpremeditated philosopher. Premeditate means when actually you know that premeditate means something which is designed before, planned. When you planned about something, beforehand, you have a plan about something, to do something. You are planning about doing something that we call premeditated. It was decided before. But he's saying that he's an unpremeditated philosopher. That means he is a skeptic. He is investigating into his life. So you cannot say something very, what should I say? You cannot be very much certain about his philosophy in that way. So that's why he's saying that an unpremeditated philosopher. That means one who has not confined intellectually to some rigid set of ideas within which his thought and life must be expressed. So that means his life, will not be guided by some specific intellectuals' moods or intellectual schools of thoughts. That means, for example, you cannot say he's an Aristotelian, or you cannot say he's a Platonic. He only believes in the Plato's philosophy. He only believes in the Aristotle philosophy. So you cannot say, about Montaigne. He's saying that I will embrace everything, and at the same time, I will ask questions, and through asking questions by being doubtful or a skeptic, he will invent something new, and then he will follow it. So that is his idea. So that's what he's saying, that he is not confined with any particular intellectual practices. So he will take all the intellectual practices, and then again he will ask questions. And so that is his expression of life. So, and he said that, he also desires to live a happy life that could not be fulfilled if he, according to him, that if he committed himself to doctrines about which perfectly, reasonable objections could be raised. That means he's saying that if you particularly believe a particular doctrines, but he's saying that every doctrine is questionable in one way or another way. He's saying that there is nothing called perfect. There is nothing called perfect. So you can ask questions about anything. So that is his idea. So, you cannot follow a particular doctrine. So he's saying that I want to be happy, and I want to fulfill, all these things, my commitment, to doctrines, but he will ask questions about those doctrines at the same time. So many problems he felt had no clear solutions. Now, there is one problem here. He has asked questions about all these problems, but sometimes he found that he cannot, answer all the questions. You cannot find any clear solutions to all those questions. So on such questions as what is true nature of things, and which is so preoccupied, the pre-Socrates, Montaigne accepted the judgment of the skeptics. So when he found that he couldn't answer or find any specific solutions, so he will take resort to the pre-Socrates, those skeptics that we call the skepticism. So he will go back to those skeptics, and then he will accept their judgment, the way actually they, thought about the world, and the worldly life, and their world, the perspective about the world. So he'll accept those. So we say that there is no more likelihood that this is true than that is true. This quote unquote, I will quote it again. No more likelihood that this is true than that is true. So you cannot say that this one is more true or truer than that one, or you cannot say that one is truer than this one. So you cannot say that. Nothing is absolute. So you can ask questions about anything. You can be skeptic. But again, this formula of skepticism wasn't indeed intended to deny what common sense tells us in the case. So in a curious way, Montaigne saw in a skepticism a kind of liberating force, which would in the end make doubt superfluous, because one would never make any permanent commitment to any doctrine any doctrines, but would assume a perpetual mode of inquiry. So you see, when you keep asking questions, I mean, in any doctrine, and it's an ongoing process. And what happens that this kind of asking questions it has a kind of liberating force. That means it will liberate you. It will offer you a kind of freedom. And what it will do in the end, make the doubts superfluous, because one would never make any permanent copy. That means you keep asking questions and you become doubtful about everything. And as a result, you see that your number of the doubts are many. So there is nothing constant. Okay? And you're in a perpetual mood of inquiry. And all the time you're inquiring about one thing after another, one thing after another. So you keep asking questions and questions to find solution. But you cannot find any solution, because when you find solutions, then again you keep asking questions. So it's a kind of eternal process, never-ending process. And as a result, what happens that contentment, or you can say that satisfaction, you will lose the satisfaction or the tranquility of your mind. You will lose the peace of mind. You will not find any peace in your mind, because all the time you're asking questions and you're getting very skeptical about everything. So, and this disturbs the tranquility, is the attempt to go beyond our ordinary experiences and penetrate the inner nature of things. So asking these kind of questions, what happens that penetrates your inner nature of things. We have our nature, and everybody has their own nature, characteristics, that is inner soul, substance, or we can say essence. You have your essence, you have your nature. So when you actually keep asking questions, even a philosophical question or a particular trend of philosophy, it has its own nature. For example, Platonic philosophy or Neoplatonic philosophy or Aristotelian philosophy, they have their own nature. So if you keep asking questions, so questions after questions, you'll find that nature at one point actually it will lose its essence, because you're asking questions after questions. So there is no permanence, and as a result, you will lose the peace of your mind, the tranquility of your mind, that will be lost. That a kind of restlessness that will work in your mind. So, and this is the saddest spectacle of all, is to find people formulating final answers on questions that are for too subtle and variable for such treatments. Because if you keep asking questions, you can find that at one point, when you try to formulate any final answer to a question, you will never be able to find any final answer to any questions. And all the time you'll find that the things are very subtle, and all your things, the questions that you're asking, they have different variable factors. And as a result, there will be no final answer to any question, because you are inquiring into everything. You are getting very inquisitive and you're asking questions. You're getting doubtful about everything. So, and that's why he's saying that the final folly of this attempt to capture the perfect and the permanent truth. That means if you try to capture the perfect truth or the permanent truth, the solid thing or the absolute truth, I mean, looking for an absolute truth, that is he's saying that it's a kind of fanaticism, it's a kind of dogmatism. Now here actually you will find that when you take something as an absolute, he's saying that there is a possibility, there is a possibility that you will lose your tranquility. But at the same time, if you try to form a final question, this is very important, try to focus on it. If you try to find a final answer to any question, that will create a kind of fanaticism or dogmatism. Do you get my point, what I'm saying here? Are you familiar with the word or expression fanaticism and dogmatism? Can anybody tell me? I mean,
yes, sir.
Understand fanaticism? Yeah, please go on. Fahim or Tushar, can you tell me?
Sir,
Fanaticism means? I mean, your understanding. You don't have to. You don't have to be that much textual. Just tell me if you really understand this. Do you know what is dogma?
yes, sir.
Socrates believe levels.
Yes, go on. What do you say?
Sir, pre-Socrates believe, then sir.
Okay, dogma actually it's a kind of principle, a set of principles, and these set of principles are set by an authority, and that authority you cannot challenge them. If they say that this is the thing, you have to accept it. You have to embrace it, just like religious belief, just like conviction, just like precept. Do you understand it now? What is dogma?
Yes, sir. We must accept the rules.
Yes. I mean, dogma is the rules or set of principles that you cannot challenge. And these kind of dogmas or rules are set by a group of people or by an authority. And that authority, you cannot challenge them. So that is dogma. For example, in our case, our religious scriptures, whether it is Hinduism or Christianity or Judaism or Islam, you can see we believe that our religious scriptures are divine, and as a result, we have to abide by them. We have to follow them. We cannot challenge them, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
To Montaigne, this is a problem. He's saying that when actually you have this kind of permanent truth, a perfect truth, and you believe that that is the only truth, then there arises a fanaticism or dogmatism. Fanaticism, in Bengali, we call it dharmandhata, or people actually who are fanatic, they only believe that only their religion is the only thing in the world, and they don't want to accept the others. That means pluralism that we call, the religious pluralism or pluralism in belief or in different kind of democratic practices. They simply don't want to accommodate those. They don't believe those. So that creates a problem, fanaticism. Actually, when you don't have a real understanding of your religion, because every religion actually advises us to accommodate all the other beliefs, even people who don't agree with us. Still, we can we can coexist with them in the society by maintaining some kind of distances, as advised by the religion. So he says that this kind of fanaticism or dogmatism will be there if you try to find a final answer or permanent or perfect truth. And Montaigne, actually, he knew it very well, because actually when he was living at that time in France, there are lots of religious wars actually going on there. And also Calvinistic Reformation was there, and Catholicism was also there. And people are having, different kinds of fights, infights, and also fights among the different groups of people, only because of the religion. And he knew, he knew very well the frightful outcome of fanaticism. And he knew that what could be the outcome of the fanaticism, what could be the consequence of fanaticism. So, and that's actually, he didn't like this idea, and he became very much skeptic about everything that is perfect, everything that is permanent. As he said, in his one of his essays, quote unquote, he says that I saw common and general behavior so ferocious above all in inhumanity and treachery that I cannot think of it without blenching in horror. So see, this is his expression. Actually, this was his personal experience. Since actually we don't have this kind of experience in our life, sometimes we find it very difficult to interrelate this kind of experience to our life. But you see, what is he saying? That I saw common and general behavior so ferocious, common and general behavior of the people. This is the people's behavior so ferocious. Why? Because they think that only their belief or only their conviction, their tenets, or their precepts, their ethics, that's the only truth. And other people's belief or their conviction or their ethic, or you can say their principles, they're not, they don't have any truth in it. So only mine one is the greatest one, and yours one is completely negligible. We can ignore it. Do you get my point, what I'm saying? Do you understand it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and also he's saying that I cannot think of without blenching in horror. So he sees that this is a kind of inhumanity. He sees that this kind of people's behavior, this ferocious behavior, is a kind of treachery. That means we shouldn't have this kind of, it's a kind of treachery. And also he's saying that, I cannot think of it without blenching in horror. Blenching in horror means he cannot think of this kind of behavior, people's ferocious behavior, this fanatic behavior, without getting horrified. So he becomes very horrified. He becomes very, terrified when he sees this kind of behavior. And without being terrified, without being in horror, he simply can think of this kind of behavior of the people. For him, this kind of behavior, this kind of ferocity, is people's behavior only because of their own belief. It's not a, it's not a human thing. It's nothing human. It's inhuman, and it's a kind of treachery, according to Montaigne. So there, actually, you see that how, he wanted to have, watching or observing this kind of experience, this kind of things in his life, during his lifetime. Now he is thinking about the constructive skepticism, and he genuinely believed that a mood of constructive skepticism could prevent such outbursts of cruelty. That means people, instead of believing their belief, blindedly, without considering the pros and cons of their belief, or without considering other people's belief, without respecting other people's belief. He says that if you have that kind of behavior, that kind of ferocity, then in that case, he's suggesting that we should have constructive skepticism. And this kind of constructive skepticism can prevent that kind of outburst of cruelty, that kind of prevent that kind of ferocity in the society. So that's why he's suggesting that we should have constructive skepticism in the society. And in the mood of true skepticism, he's saying that in that kind of skepticism, human energies would be directed toward manageable subjects and purposes, rather than struggling with riddles about the universe and its destiny. So, for example, we have lots of things like what will be our destiny, and what will, or we can say what will happen in the afterlife. You understand me what I'm saying? These things are very critical, and we didn't see them, and we don't know, and we don't have any first-hand experience.
We're confused about that.
Exactly, and only from the scriptures we came to know about them, right? The afterlife, the destiny, the hell and heaven. So these things, he's saying that these things are very distant from us. They're very remote to the people's comprehension. We cannot understand them properly. We have to depend for those understanding on the religious scriptures. So what we can do, we can have a kind of constructive skepticism for the things that are manageable, that we can manage. For example, our daily life. For example, Aristotle's philosophy. For example, Plato's philosophy. So we can ask questions about them, because these things are manageable. We can manage them. But about hell and heaven, about destiny, about hereafter, actually these are not manageable by us, because it's beyond the human comprehension. We cannot comprehend them because we are not entitled to, we don't have that capacity to imagine those things. So that's why he's saying that the things that are manageable, we should have use of constructive criticism about those things. So you see, it's very, very interesting. The philosophy actually he's talking about, and also at the same time, you can get inspired, by this kind of philosophy, and how to look into your life, how to have constructive skepticism to form your own perspective, your own worldview about the life. And he says that if you really want to practice that kind of skepticism, so a good place to begin, say Montaigne, that is, with one's own personal experiences. So you can start with your personal experiences, to formulate that kind of constructive skepticism. Your idea about love. What do you understand by love? So maybe you have your own perception about love. What do you understand by hatred? What do you understand by justice? What is your understanding of injustice? So start asking questions about your own belief. Do you follow me what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Ritu, Risalat, what about other people?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
so he's saying that instead of trying this idea of skepticism, or this philosophy of skepticism, or these, you can say, this style of questioning, instead of using this for the remote subjects that you don't have any control over, instead of having that kind of inquisitive sense about those things, better we should start asking questions of being a skeptic about our own experience. That could be the place from that we can begin with. So he's saying, that is his own word, quote unquote, he says, every man carries within himself the whole condition of humanity. It's a fantastic, aphorism, you can say, that every man carries within himself the whole condition of humanity. Now, I can give you an example. For example, I myself, or even you as an individual, we are not human being that we came to this world so suddenly. And it's not that you are only one piece. It's not that only you are the only one person. You're a continuation of your forefathers, right?
Yes, sir.
You are from your forefathers. Even from the scientific explanation, we are the genetic formation. So we actually bear the genes. We carry the genes of our forefathers. So even in that sense, you can say, and who is our forefathers? Even according to the religious scripture, if we go by the religious scripture, we can say that Adam, he is our first forefather, right?
Yes,
He's
sir.
the first
Adam.
father. And from there, now we have the continuation. We have all these, these 8 billion people in the world. So all of us actually, we are from the same father, that is Adam, and from the same mother, that is Eve. So this Adam and Eve, they are our father and mother, and from there now we are here, all of us. So even in that sense, you can say that every man carries within himself the whole human condition of humanity. So we have the whole human condition in us, the humanity. What is the humanity? If we take a look at a person, then we can understand it. For example, all of you feel sorrow, right? You feel sorrow?
Yes, sir.
And
Yes,
also
sir.
you get sad, you become sad, right?
Yes, sir.
Also you feel love, right? Also, you know what is hatred. So you see, these human emotions, which are very common to all these emotions are also there in every person individually. So in that sense, all of us, as a single individual, we actually carry all this human, the whole condition of humanity. So that's why he's saying that if you really want to be a skeptic, or if you really want to ask questions, why don't you start asking questions about your own experiences? Because asking your own experiences means asking, you're trying to be inquisitive, you're trying to be curious about the whole humanity. It's not like that I'm asking about my own experiences means only that is me. Your experiences is very common to all. My experience of sadness is common to all. Maybe the form is different, but the essence is same, that is sadness. Someone got sad when actually he found that his close friend, died very recently. So he became sad. But someone may be sad because his father died recently. So at the end of the day, that is sadness. Maybe the circumstances are different. Do you get my point?
Yes, sir.
So the results are different. But thing is that is the same thing, that is sadness. So that's what he's saying, that you can ask questioning, you can start questioning your own experiences. That will be akin to, asking questions, or akin to, being inquisitive or skeptical to the whole humanity. So it's nothing personal, it's for all of us. And this is, Montaigne, actually, how actually he talked about his skepticism, and how actually we find that his skepticism, actually is influenced the later philosophers, and especially the philosophers and also the people in the Renaissance time. I think that we don't have enough time. 1:50. That is, our lecture time is over, I guess. Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, actually, this is the problem. We could only finish Michel de Montaigne, because all these philosophers, putting them together in one lecture is difficult. So I will try to arrange another lecture with you, besides our regular lecture, and then I'll try to discuss about other 3 individually, one by one. So you don't need to worry about it. So just try to learn about Michel de Montaigne, and in our coming lectures, though actually we'll be discussing about the modern philosophers, but when we finish our discussion with the modern philosophers, then again we'll come back to this discussion, this Renaissance period, and then we'll discuss about Pascal, Bacon, and Hobbes in future, inshallah. Okay, but still I have time.
Okay, sir.
If you have any question, you can ask me.
স্যার আজকেও কি আইডি লিখতে হবে পিডিএফ এর ওখানে?
Exactly, just write down your ID so that I can see that those who are presenting this lecture. Do the same.
Okay, sir.
Do it every day.
Okay, sir.
All right. So thank you very much and hope to meet you in our next lecture, inshallah.